Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. You can find us all over the place. We're on all the social media sites, on television, Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. You can also find the podcast on thenewscasters.com. Continue looking on YouTube. We have a channel there as well. More things are developing. I can't tell you about it yet. So we've moved to another headquarters in another location that's in South Carolina. So we're really happy about the doors that are opening up there. So again, thank you so much for being part of my life. Continue sending emails, Donna@donnasedge.com. That's Donna@donnasedge.com. I've got Tawana Lowery with me right now. We're going to start a new segment going along with our monthly segment. This is going to be questions you can ask Tawana. And if you'll do this, Donna@donnasedge.com for the email, and you'll see it also down there below my chin, right down there, the email address. But if you're going ahead and direct it to Ask Tawana, that way I can know the questions you want to make sure that she gets as well. Okay, Tawana, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's a wonderful start to a new year, and I know people are excited about their goals. I'm excited about mine, and so I think it's going to be a wonderful show.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I've got a few questions for you already, some Ask Tawana questions.
Okay.
Several of these are pertaining to relationships, to home life, to business life, that kind of thing. Well, this one is kind of both. And this one is pertaining to a lady who works out of her home. Okay. And she said that she has an issue sometimes with folks coming unannounced to her home. It's like they think just because she's working out of her home, that it's not a legit business. It's not a real thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But in particular, it's her mother-in-law who just pops in, and she thinks she can just come in and run the vacuum cleaner and just do, whatever. When she's running a bit, now she's not saying what the business is. I seem to think it's something to do with customer service, because she did say she's on the phone a lot. And her mother-in-law will come and just simply ask questions while she's talking to a business person.
Yeah.
This can be tough. COVID caused a lot of this where folks are working out of their homes.
Yeah.
How did she handle this, Tawana?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. And, to your point, COVID did completely shift the normal work environment, right? And if you weren't already in an office prior to COVID and you experienced that shift and walking through it, for people who didn't go through it, I think they still haven't made the transition in their brain, right? They still have, certain generations still have a very ingrained mentality and imprint about what does it look like to go to work. You get in your car, you leave your house, you drive to a location, right? Mm-hmm. And so in this case, I would imagine the mother-in-law just can't make the shift. If you're at home, then you're at home. If you're not at home, then you're at work. However, it's causing this woman a lot of pain. Mm-hmm. So I would say there's a couple of things that she needs to do. Number one, realize that her mother-in-law just hasn't made the shift in her mind. And most likely it's not anything that's malice. She's not trying to create problems. She just can't understand the new dynamics of work from home and what that means. Mm-hmm. So I would recommend that she does this one thing. It's intentionally maybe go to lunch, maybe go to coffee or something, but not at home. Go somewhere and say, I want to talk to you about how work has changed. And for so many people like me, for instance, she could say this about herself, whatever she calls her mom by her name or whatever, since COVID, a lot of people don't go to an office anymore. A lot of people work in their home. However, it's still their office. It's still their work. And I happen to be one of the people that was affected like that. And in the beginning, it was tough for me to make the transition in my mind. But over time, I've had to realize that I block off my work life as if I got in my car and drove to an office. Mm-hmm. So I think it would help is just to help the mother-in-law walk through the changes that the world has gone through that the mother-in-law didn't go through, right? Mm-hmm. And kind of bring her up to speed on what people go through that work from home and say, I need you to understand this because this is my life. And although I'm at home between the hours of 9 and 5 or 8 and 6 or whatever it might be, it is as if I've gotten in my car and driven to an office. And I love seeing you, but I need you to understand that I have to have boundaries in my life when I'm at home. And that means I can't have you come over. Not that I don't love you, don't want to see you. I don't have visitors. I don't take private phone calls. Think of me as if I'm at an office somewhere off site. And, on the weekends and after hours, we can spend it that time. But I think just be respectful of the fact that she probably just doesn't understand the changes that have happened. Now, you and I and most people that listen to your show, like, why would I even have to explain it? But to put yourself in that other person's shoes, and that's so important to see it from their perspective, so you can actually have empathy for them and they will feel that. And if she can go with that situation. Now, if the mother-in-law violates it, then you have to have another conversation. And then what you may have to do, if it continues, just put a sign on your door and just don't allow someone to come in. If you have to change the locks,
Mm-hmm.
put your phone on silent until the person understands it. Now, the question would be, well, what if she gets offended? Well, then she gets offended.
And she would probably. Mm-hmm.
And then she gets offended. And who does the offense belong to? The offense belongs to the other person.
Mm-hmm.
If you take maybe their lack of understanding into consideration, you show radical empathy that they may not be understanding where you are. You go out of your way to explain it to them. You set the healthy boundaries. You set the expectations. You help them get a visual picture. Mom, I need you to understand that when between these hours, think of it as if I have gotten in my car and driven to another location. If I was in an office building, you wouldn't walk in there. You wouldn't be running a vacuum cleaner. You wouldn't be interrupting me. It is the same thing. And so show radical empathy, explain it, set boundaries, set expectations, and then start moving forward. If it continues, you might have to say it again. And then if it continues, then you may have to do, like I said, maybe change the locks, put a little note on the exterior of your door. Please do not disturb working, can't be disturbed and blah, blah, those kinds of things. And then just see what happens.
I think you're onto something because this is a very lengthy email. So down in the email, this is what she says. She says she has a sister-in-law and her mother-in-law consistently talks about how her other daughter-in-law has a real job. And it's apparently because she actually goes somewhere. Yeah. Now let's look at it another way. Okay, what if the daughter-in-law is not, and I'm not taking up for anybody. I'm just being an advocate here. What if the daughter-in-law is not treating it like it's a regular business?
Well, but that's really not the mother-in-law's call, right? If she is working, the mother-in-law needs to be respectful of her work hours as if she was at another location. So we will assume, because I don't know, we will assume the daughter-in-law is trying to work. And I think if she wasn't, she probably wouldn't have sent you the email. Now, if it's just the fact that she's, griping and doesn't like the mother-in-law, I don't know if that's the situation. But it wouldn't surprise me, though, that if you have a situation where families feel that much, privilege, if you would, to just step into each other's life, and she's already saying the other person has a real job, then I think the other thing I would ask the mother-in-law is, what do you think of when you think of a real job? What does that mean to you? Mm-hmm. Like, just ask her. If you say someone has a real job, what do you mean by that? Mm-hmm. And it could just be a matter of interpretation, and that the mother-in-law just simply needs to expand her definition, expand her view in this new environment that she's never had to function in.
That's true. And let me bring this into effect as well. I know someone who works for Home Depot. She's working inside her home, that set up an office for her. And I would compare her paycheck to anybody else's. She does pretty well with Home Depot. And what she does is she takes customer service calls.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all piped into her home. And again, I know she can't be disturbed. She and I are friends. I know when not to call her.
Mm-hmm.
She actually works kind of it's almost like a second shift kind of. So she works from 5 to 9 answering phone calls for customer service for Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
I know not to call her during those hours. First of all, she won't take my call.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll throw me right into voicemail if I do forget and do that. So just a strict hour, a strict schedule of when she works might really help.
Yeah. Well, the thing is you've got to have the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're just going to perpetuate the frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And on the daughter-in-law's side, maybe she does need to do more time boxing for her own self so that she can set expectations that everyone else can understand.
And another good thing to do might be this. I used to work for a radio station a few years ago. I just rented out space from them. And this is what I know. Okay. So the DJ is going to be in his sound room, and I knew when I saw that red light up there on his door, don't even knock on the door. I knew not to do that, even though I'd never been in radio before. I did know that. So maybe do something like that. Just put a sign on the door, like you said earlier.
Yep.
It says, at work.
Woman at work.
Something.
It could be a big yellow caution, like men at work. It could be a big yellow caution sign that says woman at work.
I guarantee she'll get it. And if she was actually around in the 1940s when the war was going on, the 30s and the 40s, she'll understand that. Was it Josephine was working, in the 1940s, and there were big signs and things up about women going into work. So I bet she'll get it. You probably just have to educate her. That's probably the only
I think that's probably a big part of it.
And she'll take it. She might get her feelings hurt at first, but she'll get over it. Okay. Now, this is another question, and I'm calling this one the Brady Bunch. Okay.
The Brady Bunch. Okay.
This is the Brady Bunch question right here. She said, please do not use my name. And I don't even know where she lives, so odds are. Okay. And again, by the way, you can send questions from this point on. Ask Tawana. Put that up in the subject line. My email address is donna@donnasedge.com. And I'll try to get those to you as well as they come in.
Okay.
So this is the Brady Bunch. She said it's a blended family. Things seem to be fine during the dating stage. Now I have kids. He has kids. Nobody's getting along with each other. And even though my husband and I love each other very much, I don't know what to do. What can we do about this relationship problem?
Well, did she give any specifics about why they're not getting along, or do we know some details?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Rearing kids. Okay, so when my husband, and this is Donna and Phil. Okay, this is my situation. Okay, so I had an aunt and an uncle, and they had horrible teenagers because the mom would say she couldn't go somewhere. The dad, knowingly, he would know that she said no. He would just turn around and go, yeah. So before Phil and I got married, I have a teenage son who's 14 years old. So I said, before we get married, I've got to ask this of you. And this is important. I said, if I say he can't do something, I don't want you coming behind me saying he can.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if he asks you to do something and you say he can, I'm not going to say no. Okay, we're going to have to be uniform in this decision right here. So there was a little test one time. So Brad came to me and he said, and he wanted to hang out with a bunch of guys. He was only 15. I thought he was too young to do this. And I said a flat no, son, you're too young. He didn't know I could hear. He goes to Phil's office and he said, hey, I wanted to know if I could do so-and-so with my buddies. First question out of Phil's mouth was this: did you ask your mom? And he said, yes, sir. And he said, what did your mother say? He said, she said no. And he said, well, son, the answer is no. So that's how we handle that. Okay. And I would say, have you talked to Phil yet? And if he said, yeah, he said no. And I'd say, well, then the answer is no. So that's how we handle that. Okay. Now she said that he seems to be okay. Okay. So it sounds like it's a conflict kind of a thing. she'll correct his kids and he doesn't like it. However, when he corrects hers, she feels like it's a little harsh.
Okay. So I guess the first thing would be, it sounds like the real issue is between the couple, not the kids. And I would recommend that they just sit down and have a conversation and go out to dinner. Like maybe she needs to say, hey, let's go find your favorite restaurant, get dressed up, defuse the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And then, not immediately, but some halfway through dinner, just say, there's something on my heart I really want to talk about, because I want us to have a crazy successful relationship. I want the family, the Brady Bunch. I know that we're not going to be like a movie where everybody reads a script, but I do want us, wherever it's possible, for us to live in peace.
Mm-hmm.
Here are some things that I've noticed that's creating conflict. Now, if you just say things I've noticed that's creating conflict and you don't make these accusatory remarks, then what you're doing is you're kind of pulling yourself out of it. You're looking at it from a distance and you're saying, this is what I've observed, right? And then she could simply say, it seems as if, so you want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. Always give them the benefit of the doubt. Radical empathy. In fact, you want to treat other people the way you would want to be treated. So you might could just say, how would I want someone to have this discussion with me if I were in this situation? Most of the time, Donna, people are doing what they're doing because they're either fear has taken over, or they're just trying to cope, or they're just trying to offload a problem until a future date. But we don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to figure out every way I can possibly screw up my marriage, screw up my family, screw up my job, create conflict, make people miserable. We don't do that, right? And so it's mostly the sin of just omission, not commission, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So she could say, like, when these type of situations happen, this is how it makes me feel. Mm-hmm. When I correct your children, it seems as if, right? Not you're doing this and you're doing that, but it seems as if it bothers you. Mm-hmm. Could you tell me how it makes you feel when I correct your children? What is it? How does it make you feel? Like you want to know. Because if he's got some kind of fear, now it could be that his kids, if the mother, the biological mother is still alive, then it could be that the kids go back to the mom and bad mouth how things are when they're around dad. And all it does is create conflict between him and the ex-wife, right? Mm-hmm. And he might be trying to avoid conflict with the ex-wife while creating conflict with the current wife. So his issue is just avoiding conflict. He's got a fear of conflict. He doesn't want to have to deal with it. But the way he's dealing with it is actually creating conflict. Mm-hmm. But what she needs to understand from him is exactly how is it making you feel? Mm-hmm. Because before we got married, and of course, it doesn't matter whether you're a Brady Bunch or a blended family or you don't have any kids. After the honeymoon, it doesn't take long. I remember some of it is 6 weeks, some of it's 6 months. But I remember about 6 months after my son got married, he called me one day and he said, Mom, is marriage hard? And I honestly had to just put my hand over my mouth to stop from laughing. So I didn't want to hurt his feelings. And I said, no, son, it's not hard. It's impossible apart from God's help. And you could just, it was just dead silent on the other side of the phone. And I knew he was just melting to hear me say this, right? But what you need to understand is what's creating the other person's response. Mm-hmm. And so if it's probably fear, she could say, honey, is it concern about how your ex is going to respond? Help me understand what you're feeling. What is this causing for you? Because if it's Is it the way I'm correcting? Do we need to talk about it? Is it what I'm saying? Is it how I say it? Help me understand, because I want to be the best mom, stepmom to your kids, right?
Mhm.
And then conversely, she could share, when you're correcting my kids, I'd like to share with you how it makes me feel.
Mhm.
And so if you could go at it in the situation that no one is doing this intentionally, most likely they're just trying to cope. They're just trying to, avoid pain,
Mhm.
and they're acting in fear, and you know trying to gain pleasure, even if it's just, I'd like to talk to the ex-wife for at least once without her gritching at me about something that you're doing wrong or I'm doing wrong. So it's avoiding pain and trying to gain some sense of pleasure. But I would say just have a very low key, low conflict, radical empathy conversation, and understand what is behind the other person's response without it being accusatory.
Mhm. And it sounds a little bit, just from reading between the lines, she feels like her kids are being scolded more than his kids are. I mean, it feels that way in the email. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
reading something that's not there. I don't know.
Well, she
Yeah.
could just say that. She could say, I could be totally wrong. In other words, give the other person an out, right?
Mhm.
She could say, I could be totally wrong about this.
Mhm.
But now see, when you do that, you're defusing,
Mhm.
because it's already a hot issue, right? You don't want to throw gasoline on a fire. You want to diffuse it, because the goal is to get behind the other person's feelings.
Mhm.
What's driving it? Now, if he is in fact scolding her kids, well, it may just be because he's under a lot of pressure and he just doesn't want to deal with it. He doesn't want to hear it.
Mhm.
He doesn't want to have her kids cause him any conflict or any problem. But if they're going to have even the hope of having a happy marriage, then they probably just need to understand how each other feels. And once that happens, then they can say, okay, we both want to have a happy marriage. We both want this to work out. Now there's a lot of moving parts in this, but we signed up for it, and we can do this with God's help.
Mhm.
But now that we understand each other's feelings and the fears, let's talk about what it would look like to defuse these things. Let's go ahead and set some boundaries and some rules and some operating expectations, so to speak, about how we're going to live as a blended family. And then once they do that, then let's bring everybody together and let's have a conversation. Let's take all the kids out and go out to eat and just do something fun. And then we're just sit down and have a conversation, and do it in a non-threatening manner, and say, look, we know everyone's still trying to get used to each other. It's a lot to deal with. We want all of us to be happy. We love you. We want us to all get along, blah, blah. And here's some things that we need to be able to do so that we can have peace and respect for each other. And then just lay it out. Like, here are the 5 things that we have to do. And then give each other grace as they learn to walk through it.
Yeah, because you're going to forget. This is all something that's new. This is a whole new outfit. So when Phil and I were married, I had a son already from a previous marriage. He's 15 years old when we were married. The only thing I asked, the only thing, now Phil's 2 daughters were already grown out on their own, but the only thing I asked him to do, I said, okay, if you're going to say, because he's going to come to you and he's going to use you for a patsy, because that's just the way teenagers are. I said, so he's going to ask you if he can do something when he may have already talked to me. And I've said, no, I don't want you to say yes. We've got to be with this together. So it was really simple the way we had this. So what we would do when he wanted to do something, I would say, have you talked to Phil? And he would say, yes. I would say, what did he say? And he would say, well, he said no. And I'd say, well, son, the answer is no. And so Phil did the same thing. Very quick, he learned he couldn't play us.
Well, whether you're in a blended family or not, kids try to do that.
They're just teenagers. I did.
Yeah, they're trying to get, they're trying to get away with something they want. And whether both parents are biological or kids just do it, right? So, just realize that's the nature of raising adolescents and teenagers.
another thing. I mean, you as the parent can't act like you think your kids are being treated like Cinderella either. I mean, you've got to, it's just some give and take on all ends. And that's why it's so important to talk. I think what happens in everything, it could be a business relationship, business partners. If there's no communication, everybody's mind is going to go far out there.
Absolutely.
On the left or on the right. You're going to imagine things that are not there and things that didn't happen.
That's right. And it's so important. That's why it's so important just to have the radical empathy conversation, expose the fears, deal with the fears, and then, that way how to move forward with the other person. So for instance, if you have a spouse that, if one spouse likes a lot of detail because that's how they get peace. And the other spouse says, I don't really want to talk because I don't want to be criticized. Well, now you got a problem here, right? Because if the other spouse just shuts down, then the one spouse that needs detail is going to go berserk. And so what you need to do is have a conversation to say, when I have to feel like I'm supposed to give details or called on to give details, it makes me feel threatened. And the other one, well, if I don't have all the details, I don't feel safe. Well, that could be a recipe for disaster. So the way you do it is, here's how we're going to mitigate this. I'm going to say to you, I'm going to ask you some questions because I really want some details, and I'm not questioning you or your ability, and I'm not going to criticize you. I just need to know about X, Y, Z. And the other person could respond by saying, okay, but I will tell you what I do know, but please respect if I don't know everything. But I'm willing to help you find out the other things I don't know. And see so what you're doing is you're elevating the relationship and respect for each other above these needs that we have developed over time that are all the false ways that we get peace and a sense of assurance and all this kind of stuff, coping mechanisms, right? And so we actually sacrifice marriages and families and all kinds of things for the sake of our coping mechanisms. But if we just realize, look, this is how I cope, and I want you to understand this, not that you've got to change your life, but if we can understand where each other's weaknesses or fears are, it will help us and we can move forward.
Perfect. That's the perfect thing right there. And just communication.
Communication.
We went past the commercial break. Let's go into
radical empathy. Radical empathy.
There you go. Let's go into a commercial break. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. It's fun to have a show with you. We'll be right back. Queen City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring.
but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
Donna's Designs offers a line of handmade memorial, wedding, and keepsake jewelry that launched back in 1970. I'm a self-trained jewelry designer, and I will work closely with you to create unique designs you can love and treasure for years to come. Whether that be flowers that were used in a funeral arrangement or stones you found on the beach at a memorable trip, call me at 256-659-4319, and let's think of the possibilities.
At Liberty Bank, we're all about community, whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need. Toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
I'm excited to announce our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all MyPillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98, or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely free.
The only place I buy my beef is Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama. Their cattle is born and raised on their ranch, grass and grain fed, and you can feel confident when you serve your family and friends because their beef is all natural and no antibiotics or hormones are added. You can buy whole beef or perhaps go in with family or friends and buy half. Their customer service is number one as they take care of the delivery to their local processor and can deliver to your home for a small added fee. They also offer herd replacement heifers. I always call Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama for my beef specialty recipes and cookouts, and you can too. Food shortages are increasing, so buy local by calling 256-523-6462. That's 256-523-6462. We're back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show for Truth Matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. Now, that's Central Time. To you out there on the East Coast out there, that's going to be 2 p.m. So we appreciate you listening to us any way you can. All over by the way, I can hardly ever remember the website. And my husband, who is one of those that's I'm into pinpointing things in a particular way, he's right. I need to tell you about the website. That's donnasedge.com. donnasedge.com. You'll find all kinds of stuff. You'll find past shows. You'll find all kinds of things. Even recipes are on there from like 20 years ago. It'll be 20 years this coming April. So, yay, we'll have some kind of a celebration. We're going to do something. Well, we've got the best guests. That's why this show is a success. And you're one of them, Tawana. Thank you so much for being with me on the show today. By the way, before we get started with the next question, and by the way, you will send questions to me if you want them for Tawana. It'll be up in the heading, Ask Tawana, Tawana. So ask Tawana. Okay, so tell us a little bit about you. Now, you have some wonderful things that are happening right now with your business.
Yeah. So I recently launched an online academy called the Prayer Coach Academy, and it's where women of faith who feel a call to help mentor or add something to their coaching repertoire can actually go through a coaching certification program to teach them to become more of a prayer guide, a prayer coach. And you may think, well, what does that mean? Well, all you need to do is just reach out to me at tawana@tawanalowery.org and ask for more details and set up a free call and we can discuss it. But it's just a great way to amp up your ability to guide others, to mentor others, maybe small group fellowships, or if you're already a life coach and you just want to add another punch to your life coaching skills, this is a great way to do it. And so, yes, I've got a lot of those things coming in 2025. I've got several events I'm going to be speaking at, one in May, one in July, one in November. And so I'll provide more details as those dates get closer.
That sounds great. You know, something I was thinking about, and I've been meaning to mention this to you, and I'm talking to the ministers' wives who are out there. You know, a lot of times the husband who's pastoring the church he'll be asked to talk with people, like it could be issues in the family or whatever. And I just wanted to say this. So our pastor's wife, I don't know, I tend to go to her instead of him because I don't think he's going to see things from my point of view as a woman. So if you're a minister's wife, I think you need to think about doing this. And
yes,
get in contact with one. I think that would help you when you're talking with people, and especially with women and teenager girls or whatever.
Yeah. And if you're looking for someone to be a keynote at your women's event, I do events for women all the time, been doing it for years. I have several great topics we can talk about. Identity is a really powerful one. But again, just send me an email, tawana@tawanalowery.org. And we can set up a call, or you can go to missovercomer.com and you can just schedule a call with me there. And we can talk about what you might want to do with your women's group.
I think that would be
great idea. Great idea.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have more emails, and I wanted to get in this one right here. This looks like this is a mom and pop type business owner. It's the husband and the wife. And she said, even though she's been in business with her husband for many years, she used the word hover. She said, he hovers over me and he questions my decision making. Now, he probably doesn't mean a thing about it. The difference between men and women, right? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. But she feels like he doesn't trust her in making decisions about the business. She wants to know how she needs to handle this.
Yeah. So, I agree. Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. But the hovering thing, the controlling thing is not really gender specific, right? It's an issue of the heart. Mm-hmm. And sometimes if someone makes you feel like they don't trust you, it could be a couple of things. It could be that they're doing things that they can't be trusted. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we treat people out of the way we're already behaving. I've had those experiences, where someone kind of treated me with suspicion all the time because they were actually the one that couldn't be trusted. So I know this is kind of a hard thing to say, but you might want to just think about this and pray about it. The other thing it could be is that the person who's doing all the hovering could really just be coping. It could be the way that they're coping with some unresolved hurt, some childhood issues, some real deep-seated fears of maybe being surprised, maybe being abandoned, maybe being shocked by something that they didn't know. And so what they're doing is they're coping. And the way they're coping is unhealthy, yes, but it's creating problems. Now, look, it's not bearing good fruit. Love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, goodness, kindness, self-control. That's good fruit, the way the Bible describes it. What it's producing is anxiety, anger, resentment, fear, and so on and so forth, right? It's the opposite. Mm-hmm. Now, typically what might happen is a person who feels like they've got to control everything is trying to get a sense of peace by controlling. And what's at the issue, the real heart issue is fear. They just are driven by fear. And so they're coping with their fear by control. Now, one of the ways that you can do this, if you're a praying person, is you can really go to God and talk to God about how this person is making you feel. And do it in a way that, as if you are taking on their issue, right? So for instance, in this woman's case, she could just go to God and say, God, when my husband does this to me, this is how it makes me feel. It makes me feel that I'm inadequate. It makes me feel that I, am less than. It makes me feel like I'm incapable, and all these kinds of things. And so, God, if that's how he feels, if he feels less than, incapable, not good enough, and that's why he's trying to hover over me and control me, so that he can gain a sense of peace, forgive him. And I said, you would forgive him. But she has to own how it makes her feel. She can't control him, but she can own how it makes her feel. And so here's what's happening, most likely. He's trying to get peace from controlling. She's trying to get peace by not being controlled. So the question is, what could possibly go wrong, right?
Sounds
Everything.
like its tail is what it sounds like.
Right. That's a recipe for disaster times 100. And so what she has to do is, can I have peace if he doesn't change? That's a huge question. And if the answer is no, well, then now she has to say why. Because the issue is, you can actually have peace whether another person changes or not. And so then if she can get to a place of having peace, regardless of whether he hovers or not, now she can have wisdom. Because you cannot have wisdom apart from having peace. Why? Because your brain is so caught up in survival, fight, and flight that you actually can't engage God's voice. You can't have a creative, intuitive, reflective moment because you've got all these squirrels screaming in your head about how you're going to survive this other person who's hovering over you all the time and making you feel inadequate and small and incapable. So, but if you can absolutely have peace, whether they change or not, well, now you have moved from your reptilian brain into your prefrontal cortex, because this is where the creativity and the communication center lives, and you can gain wisdom about how to communicate with the other person. And God may give you a great idea. He may say, look, you need to ask your husband this one question. And it could defuse all of it. But he's living in his reptilian brain. She's living in her reptilian brain. So you basically have two reptiles that are in fight and flight mode.
Coming at each other.
Exactly. And so again, once she gets to a place of peace, now I'm not saying he doesn't need to change, but she's got to get to a place of peace so she can have wisdom to know how to talk to him. Right? Rather than you're always hovering over me and blah, blah, and being accusatory. Well, then she can sit down and say, I noticed this and, it makes me feel X, Y, Z. And I know you're not trying to do this on purpose. I'm sure it's only me, but, and you probably don't even realize you're doing it. But this is how it makes me feel. Can you help me understand, what is it that you're wanting? Like, or what is it something that you're concerned about? And then again, radical empathy, understand what's behind the person's behavior, because you may not know. And it could be something that they've never told you. It could be, hey, when I was 7 years old, this came out of left field. I didn't know it was coming. It left me devastated. It left me homeless. My parents, or what, it could be anything. But I vowed right then and there, nothing was ever going to surprise me again. Well, but you can't live that way. And again, just get to a place where you can have peace. then you can have wisdom, and then you can have a conversation with the other person that's non-combative, non-confrontational, and it diffuses it, like we were saying a minute ago, and it gives them the benefit of the doubt so that they need to feel safe, that they can be honest with you. But if you're going back to them defensively and you're not going to them in a conversation that's peace infused or grounded in peace, it's just going to create this kind of thing over and over.
I think so too. You'd be amazed at how sometimes it's just miscommunication. You know, you need that, because this is another thing about couples in business. And I know this for sure. I know a lot of business owners. And so one of them, I know in particular, she was afraid she'd hurt his feelings. She was afraid she'd hurt his ego. He was afraid of the same thing. And they just needed to talk.
Well, here's the thing. If you don't get it out in the open, it just festers and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, we have to say it out loud, but we have to say it in a way that's loving, peace loving, right? The Bible says, you know, the wisdom that comes from God is first of all peace loving. And so you have to say, we want this to be peaceful. We want this to be successful. We want to understand each other. We want to love each other. But this is what's happening that's causing conflict. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's just say it out loud, because most people are afraid of 1,000 things. But we have to talk about it in a place where we feel safe to talk about it, right? So that we can understand when it happens again, oh, they're afraid. Let's go talk about, you know, honey, tell me what's bothering you today. Like, or you could go proactively to them and say, you know, this is bothering me today. This is how it's making me feel. And what's amazing is when you do that for another person, it actually gives them permission to do it back. And she may have to be the first person that says, you know, honey, this is bothering me. And I'm sure it's ridiculous. Like, give them the benefit of the doubt, right? I'm sure this is ridiculous. Can you help me get to the bottom of this? Right? Help me get to the bottom of this. Let's talk about this together. Let's walk through this together so that this doesn't keep happening. Because I feel like, I could be wrong, but I feel like this is causing some, you know, disturbance in the force, so to speak, right? Between us. And I know we don't want that. We want to have a great relationship. Let's talk about what's causing the shift or causing the conflict.
You know, you can take a word that your husband uses a lot and turn it around. So this is what I do. So my husband, and this came from his dad. His dad used to say, women talk womanese. What he meant by that is we think differently than they do. So he would talk with his wife and he would say, honey, you speak in womanese. I'm not getting it. I don't know. So this is what I do to Phil. I'll say, you know what? I think I've been talking womanese to you. If it's about a situation of saying, okay, that puts him at, okay, she's not griping at me. She's not doing that. She's trying to tell me what's hurting her. Sometimes that's all you have to do. Just use the word womanese. Okay, just use that word. I'm apparently speaking womanese to you. But now I'd like to know a little bit more about this situation. So I know you watched the show. So if you want to give us just a little bit more detail, and so next month when Tawana's on the show, we'll get into more little detail. But I want to think, what if it's this way? Okay, so I have a couple of friends who started a business together. It was a landscaping business. Okay, they had more work than they could handle in the summer months and in the spring months and fall months. In the winter months, it was pretty much dead. Well, so they had a son who came out of this life. And so dad wanted to give the business to the son. Well, the son is just freshly married. Okay, so this is what the son saw. He saw mom and dad spending money all through the year, not putting anything back. And then they were having problems saving money for bills. They couldn't pay their bills, couldn't pay the light because they were blowing it. So what the son said, he talked with his new wife and he said, I want to do this because I love landscaping. But let me tell you, he actually prevented a problem from happening. So he said, this is what happened. I saw in my mom and dad's business, lots of money. They should have saved some for the winter months, put back some money so they could pay for all their bills. They were blowing it throughout the rest of the year. Well, she came from a family who liked to spend money. And I think he was being really smart. Now, they've got a very successful landscaping business, the two of them do. And I think it's because he did that. I think it's because he got with her and he said, we got to save money. Because both of us want to quit our jobs. And again, the business was bringing in a lot of money. But it was a communication thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because he saw where the parents went wrong in the business.
Yeah.
And he established that with her. Again, it's very successful now that they have different locations all over the place.
That's
so
beautiful.
They're doing really, really well. So that could be one issue. Maybe he had parents who had a business before, and it was very similar to this. And maybe he felt like whoever was paying the bills wasn't communicating with the other person in the business.
Well, she's got to get to the root of what his fear is.
Uh-huh. It's a fear.
So that she can have understanding, and so that he can say it out loud and in a safe environment. And then they can figure out how to attack it. How do we navigate this? And maybe she needs to make a couple of adjustments. It could be like, honey, two times a month or once a week, we're going to sit down and we're going to go over our P&L. And, it could be just that way. And you're free to ask me anything and I won't be offended. And if you see something that you feel like is a place that is a red flag, we all have blind spots, right? Mm-hmm. Then please share it with me, but just make me a promise. Do it from a place of love and empathy. Give me the benefit of the doubt and just help me see something that I may not be seeing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's key right there. And I'll tell you something else Phil and I have done the past 30 years since we've been married. We treat this show right here, we treat Donna's Edge as if we're two partners in the business. We're not related to each other. We're not husband and wife. That's how we treat it. So once a month, well, sometimes more often than that, but we meet with each other at least once a month. I tell him what's happening because I'm going to tell you, COVID changed every single thing we do about this business. We had to have a lot of meetings a few years ago. And I didn't see it that way. I thought, well, it's still a show. I mean, what could be the big deal on that? Well, I was not relaying information to him is what the issue was. And it made him feel a little bit left out.
Yeah.
So I said, I didn't know I was doing that. He's the one who had the meeting with me. And I said, I had no idea I was doing that. And he said, you're doing that. Do you need
me? And it gets back to valuing the person above the thing, right? Gotcha. Whether the thing is the business or your need for control. And you just have to think about, how would Jesus do it? I mean, he wouldn't value his mission or value a business more than a person. Mm-hmm. And he's our model. And so we just have to realize that the relationship, the person, love, joy, peace, and all those things is the paramount goal. Because you can make all the money in the world and be miserable, or you can have no money and be miserable, or you can be a billionaire and have peace and barely pay your bills and have peace. Right? It's an issue of the heart, and we really do just need to address those heart issues, value the other person, and realize that there are solutions, but we have to talk and communicate from a place of empathy.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back just a little bit. This could pertain to the Brady Bunch question we had and to this one at the same time. Okay. And I'm using me for an example. Okay. So I was single for a long time. And so got a divorce. My son was very young. And so I was used to making decisions myself. I was the mom and the dad. So I was just used to doing all that. I did not think a thing about it. Phil and I get married. And here I am just swapping out, I'm doing this. I'm even changing the spark plugs in my car. I mean, I just used to having to do everything by myself. And so Phil would want to help me. And he'd say, I had my head under the hood of the car one day.
Amazing.
And he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm fixing my car. I'm changing the spark plugs. And that's back when you had spark plugs and when you could do it back then. And so I'm changing the spark plug. And I'm looking at him like, what do you think? I'm helpless? I can't do anything by myself. And that's the way I was looking at it.
Yeah.
And he was looking at it as, what do you need me for?
Exactly.
I mean, so it was both of us right there, And he said, I don't know what you need me for. And I said, well, I've been changing my spark plugs. I can do these things right here. And he said, I can do this and you can do your other things in your business. And I'm going, actually, because I think, in a way, I was feeling powerful. I was feeling like, I can change the spark plugs, even though I'm a woman, I can, all this. And then again, he was feeling unappreciated. And I said,
Right.
you know what? I really don't particularly like changing spark plugs.
Yeah.
I really don't. It's just one of those things that I had to do. And so then all that stuff was left up to him, which relieved me of a lot of duties that I could actually run the business with.
Right.
Sometimes it's both of us. I know it was with me. I was used to making all the decisions by myself.
Yeah. And again, it gets back to, what is it giving me? It's giving me a sense of control. Well, what does that give you? It gives me a sense of power. What does that give you? Eventually, if you ask enough questions, you'll realize that it's giving you peace, right? At least you're hoping that you'll have peace. But peace is a person. And that's what we have to remember and remind ourselves. Peace is not a state of being. Peace is not a bank account. Peace is not a resume. Peace isn't having, all the ducks in a row. Peace is a person. And we can have that whenever we want. We can have that. And then it gives us the ability, like I said, to have wisdom to know how to go forward.
Well, and then another thing is Phil is 11 years older than I am. And I was used to just bombarding through doors without anybody opening a door for me. And then he would run and open the door for me. And I mean, I was not ever a women's liber or anything like that. I was just used to doing things by myself.
You were surviving.
Yeah, that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
So he said, okay, Miss Businesswoman, is it okay for me to open the door for you? And I said, I would prefer you open the door for me. I just wasn't thinking about it. I was just used to doing things, just bombarding. So
it was no malice. It was just you operating as you had been operating.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't know I was doing that, but I was.
Right.
So
again, ignorance. It was just ignorance. You were just doing your thing, right? And so it took a conversation for him to say, I would like to open the door for you. Oh, okay. Well, I haven't had anybody open the door for me. I'm just used to doing it myself. I'm not disrespecting you. I just have to reprogram my brain that you get pleasure out of opening the door for me.
And I love it.
Right. And I do like it. So I think I need to just make an adjustment here in how I think.
Let me just say, I just wasn't thinking. So
right.
That may be some of the relationship problems. That's all it is. Is we're just not thinking about those things.
Again, it's seldom ever malice. It's typically survival coping mechanisms.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm good with roses. I'm good with those things. We're going to have to call it a day. I can't believe time has just flown by. Tawana, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. And remember, everybody, under the subject line, Tawana, ask Tawana. And by the way, some of these questions we've asked for you, if there's a little more detail, I'm perfectly okay with you sending more detail. That would be great. And I know Tawana doesn't mind as well. Tawana, how can folks find you again?
They can go to Tawana at tawanalowry.org or missovercomer.com, and you can click on coaching and you can book a free call with me. And if you have something that you want to book or speaking opportunity or whatever you want to learn more about prayer coach certification, just book a free call.
There you go. Tawana, thank you again so much for being with me today. It's always
my pleasure.
To be with you. Absolutely.
My pleasure.
Hang around and we'll get you set up for February, okay? Take just a minute. And thank you guys. Hope you have a super duper awesome blessed day today.